This is KGW News at 5.
Good evening. First here at 5 o'clock tonight, we have updates in the case of an off-duty Vancouver police officer shot and killed outside his home. A Clark County deputy was the one who pulled the trigger. And tonight we're hearing from the mother of the robbery suspect deputies were chasing moments before the deadly shooting. Mike Benner joins us with more on that, as well as more on the deputy who's connected to another high-profile case. Mike?
That's right, Laurel. That deputy is identified as Jonathan Feller. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he is one of the deputies who shot and killed Kevin Peterson Jr. back in 2020. You're about to hear some of Feller's account of that shooting, but first we're hearing from Ava Segura, mother of the young man who started the deadly chain of events Saturday night.
I felt bad. I wasn't okay.
Ava Segura is in disbelief over the deadly shooting of an off-duty Vancouver police officer, namely because her son, Julio Segura, is at the center of it.
He wasn't okay. Maybe that's why he acted like this time.
From her home in Yakima, Washington, Ava told us in Spanish how Julio struggled with his mental health, but he still managed to help her pay rent, pay the cell phone bill, and run errands, among other things. Ava paints a very different picture of her son, who was accused of robbing a convenience store Saturday night. Authorities say Julio took off in a getaway car, only to ditch it miles away because police were chasing him. Julio went to a nearby home and started banging on the door. The home belonged to off-duty Vancouver police officer Donald Sahota, who got into a fight with Julio. Julio stabbed Sahota multiple times before trying to get into the house. That's when Clark County Deputy Jonathan Feller arrived and fired several rounds from his rifle, killing Sahota in what appears to be a case of mistaken identity. Feller is one of 3 deputies who were involved in a high-profile fatal shooting in 2020.
And I can see the gun is in his right hand. It's at his waist level, and it's at his waist, pointed out from his waist, and the barrel's pointed right at me.
That is the voice of Deputy Feller. He's describing the deadly shooting of Kevin Peterson Jr. during a drug sting gone bad in October 2020.
I started shooting him, and all I could think of was center mass, center mass, center mass, because that was my best way to stop him.
Feller and the 2 other deputies were ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing in connection to the Peterson shooting. But less than 2 years later, Feller has been identified as the deputy involved in another deadly shooting, this time of an off-duty Vancouver police officer.
For the officer who died, I'm very sorry to his family.
Ava Segura apologizes to the Sahota family for the role her son played in the tragedy.
All right, as you heard right there, Ava Segura is sorry, but she's also conflicted. She knows her son could very well have been shot and killed Saturday night, and she's relieved he wasn't. She just wishes nobody was killed. In the meantime, Julio Segura remains behind bars this afternoon. Bail is set at $5 million, and Deputy Jonathan Feller remains on leave. Laurel?
Thank you, Mike. Turning to the pandemic now, there are some hopeful trends in Washington. Today, state health officials held a briefing on the COVID situation. They say cases are starting to trend downward in Western Washington. They're calling it a light at the end of the tunnel.
The numbers have started to level off from what we were seeing during the holidays and the early part of January. And as you know, we had said there was going to be a several-week turn, couple of months where we were going to have some difficult times, and that's what we are seeing.
However, it's not all good news in Washington. Health officials are concerned about Eastern Washington. Hospitals there are dealing with a sharp rise in COVID patients needing treatment. A school district in Cowlitz County, about 50 miles north of Vancouver, has a levy on the ballot, and some plan to vote no to protest the mask mandate. Like Oregon, kids in Washington are required to wear them in the classroom. Christine Pitawanich talked with the superintendent of Castle Rock Schools.
The Castle Rock School District superintendent says there is a lot of frustration in his community over masking in schools. In fact, on Tuesday, he says people stood outside a school protesting masks. But that frustration is spilling over and now may affect a school levy on the ballot.
So we put a letter out to 3 communities that said, listen, I know you're frustrated. We're all frustrated. But to take it out on kids for something that as a district we have no control over is unfortunate.
Castle Rock School District Superintendent Ryan Green is in a tough spot. His district has a levy on the line with ballots due on Tuesday.
That extra 10% that our local dollars paid for are those supports that kids need. You talk about band and choir and sports. Those are all things that are extra that the state doesn't pay for. And our local dollars pay for that.
But he's getting pushback from some community members who have voted no on the levy or threatened to vote no over masking in schools.
And it was frustrating for us because we have no control over the masking mandate. This is a mandate from the state of Washington saying that all 295 districts are going to comply with the masking mandate.
And with the state paying 82% of the district's budget, Green says the district has no other choice but to comply with the state's masking rules.
If we don't follow the state mandate, then we lose, for us in our community, we lose about $1.3 million a month in apportionment. And that's huge. We would go bankrupt in about a month and a half, 2 months.
Green says for more than 20 years, local school levies have not failed because of tremendous community support. He hopes that trend continues.
We have 1,412 kids in our school district, and we're trying to support all of them. And the levy is a huge piece of that.
Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
New information tonight surrounding a concerning rise in traffic deaths in Portland. In 2021, 63 people died in traffic crashes across the city. That's the most since 1990. This is according to PBOT's Vision Zero traffic crash report released today. It also notes a dramatic and alarming increase in pedestrian deaths. 27 pedestrians died in traffic incidents last year, up from 18 the year prior. The majority of the victims were homeless. You can read more about the report on KGW.com. Tonight we're hearing from close friends of former Mayor Bud Clark, who died yesterday at 90 years old. As Joe Ranieri reports, he's remembered as more than just a mayor.
Well, I'm starting to get excited. But
it's fair to say there has been no larger-than-life personality in Portland politics than Bud Clark.
He was very colorful character.
The former mayor of Portland died on Tuesday.
This was when I was in high school. This is when Earl Blumenauer was on the city council.
Thomas Lauderdale, now known for his band Pink Martini, was a high school volunteer in Clark's office in 1986. He once held the title of junior mayor.
I really thought that I wanted to go into politics, and his office was an incredible place to be.
He spent a couple of years working with the mayor, and Clark even helped him get into Harvard.
This is the recommendation he wrote to get me into college.
Many remember Clark for this Expose Yourself to Art campaign that made national headlines, where he was wearing this famous trench coat.
This is the coat that is in the Expose Yourself to Art poster.
A coat carrying a lot of Portland political history.
But the coat itself belonged to Governor Bowerman in 1904.
Somehow the coat ended up in the hands of Bud Clark.
Yeah,
now the famous nearly 120-year-old garment is owned by Lauderdale. He bought it through a Bud Clark estate sale.
I said, well, can you get down there and put a bid on the jacket? Because the jacket was up for grabs. And so I bid and got it.
Though he was the front man for the poster, it was Clark's wife who actually exposed him to art.
His wife, Sigrid, was a violinist in the Oregon Symphony. And so, every week the mayor was in Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall watching the symphony.
Everything he did was about the people.
Those close to Clark, like his former press secretary, Chuck Duffy, remember why they knew he could get elected.
I was there the night that he announced for mayor at a small Christmas party for the neighbor newspaper. And I told him I wanted to help. And
Duffy says Clark quickly learned how to run a city and let people know who was in charge, even if it came to letting the head of police go.
Bud had breakfast with Jim Davis at the Fat City Cafe, and they were arguing about an audit that the auditor wanted to do with the police bureau. Chief Davis didn't want it.
That conversation went back and forth until Clark ended Chief Davis's tenure over breakfast at a restaurant in Multnomah Village.
And Davis kept saying no. And finally, Davis looked at Mayor Clark and said, "Read my lips, no." And Bud looked at Davis and said, "Read my lips, you're fired." And he fired him right in the restaurant that morning.
Memories and stories bringing comfort to those who knew him best as a mayor and a friend.
I miss him. I miss him. He was great. I wish he was mayor today, and I wish he was, still with us.
In Portland, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.